One of the incredible things about Rotary is knowing that there are people across the world who you can connect with. For me, that's just given me a sense of power in belonging. So I know that I belong anywhere. And I know that I've got Rotary friends everywhere. Knowing that you've got a global reach of people who are like-minded, that's the wow factor.
Rotary is one of the most powerful international organizations that a young person can be involved in. It's one of the world's largest humanitarian organizations, has a membership of around 1.2 million members. It's located in over 200 countries and geographical regions. Pretty much any country you can think of, there'll be a Rotary Club there doing work in the local community, as well as connecting to each other across the globe, working together to make the world itself much better.
As Rotarians, being able to do things like start projects that have global impact. And I always talk to people about End Polio Now, because we wouldn't be where we are today in terms of polio in this world without Rotarians starting a project. For me, that's the power in everything that we do.
You have this incredible organization, this incredible network at your disposal where you can learn from, engage with, run things through the organization. Rotary has 7 focus areas where it focuses its energy and its time. Those key areas are disease, prevention and treatment, peace and conflict resolution, water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, and economic and community development. And then this year, a new key area was added, which is the environment.
Rotary has changed my life because it's enabled me to help more communities and more people. Rotary is relevant in our own backyards and it's relevant right across the world. I think the way that we're working now as Rotarians and Rotary clubs is really changing, not just because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but because we're really thinking more about how we bring people into Rotary and let people know that Rotary is for them. It's a great way, first of all, to meet people, but also to do good work in your community. It doesn't matter who you are, if you have got a heart and mind for giving and helping communities and working with people. Yes, Rotary is for you. That's what Rotary is. So yes, it's for everybody.
Rotary has never backed away from the hardest challenges because we're committed to a better, more equitable world. This year is no exception. Staying away from people and places we love in order to keep them safe. And despite the challenges, your generosity continued. Your donations provided more than $7 million to fund coronavirus relief projects in communities worldwide. And thanks to you, citizens of Kigali, Rwanda have their first public library. Women in rural Costa Rica are enriching their communities through social entrepreneurship. At-risk kids in Puerto Rico have an artistic outlet to heal their emotional traumas. Rotary and its partners have reduced 99.9% of polio cases worldwide. Thanks to you, the Rotary Foundation raised $408 million last year. So together, we can keep doing good in the world. Donors who take action help create lasting change. Our work isn't possible without you.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for this month's Rotary Works Professional Development Session. My name's Claudia Myrtle, and I'm a proud member of the Rotary Works Initiative. I'm so happy that you've joined us for our November webinar on career development strategies. It's a part of a Zones 33 and 34 Rotary Works program. It's the brainchild of immediate past Rotary International Director, Stephanie Urchik. Rotary Works offers professional and skill development seminars, coaching, connecting, resources, posting, finding job opportunities, small grant support. You can learn more about what we offer by typing into your browser rotary.works. Our program today is navigating the shark-infested waters of the workplace. In other words, office politics. Unfortunately, this is something that we've all probably had to manage at some point in our lives. Office politics can seem innocuous enough, as if they can include actions like selling your idea to the boss or to your colleagues, or looking to influence the direction of the organization, or creating alliances that could benefit the organization and the employees. However, more often than not, office politics includes control tactics, cutthroat maneuvers, and trying to get ahead unfairly, and other behaviors that create dissonance and distrust. Unfortunately, when you get more than 3 people together, there are often politics. Fortunately, we have just the speaker to help you navigate the behaviors and the antics of fellow coworkers. Gary Eskin is the owner of Eskin Business Solutions, focusing on leadership, human resources, and risk management. A Dale Carnegie trainer for over 30 years, he also holds several certifications, including Eye Opener, High Performance Culture, and multiple DISC certifications. Gary's clients are great big fans, using words like expertise, drive, and dedication to excellence, hard work, compassion, understanding, and high standards, agent of change, and easy to trust. We're so excited that Gary is willing to share his knowledge and his passion with us today. Please join me in giving Gary a warm Rotary welcome.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for having me and taking the time to attend. It's really appreciated. As one of the things we're going to talk about today is investing in relationships. And, watching that video and what Rotarians do, you've been investing in relationships for a very, very long time. I think it was since 1912 or 1909, something like that, when Paul Harris got it started. And you've been investing in relationships from out of the crib into wheelchairs. And I've been part of Rotary in the past, some very, very close friends who are involved with Rotary. So if you take those skills that you've learned over the years and really invest them in your whole self, whether it be at work or at home or with friends, you'll do a pretty good job getting through any navigational things that we need to go through, particularly at what we've been through over the past 2 years or so, and looking forward what that might bring. So use those skills which you've already learned, and plus maybe you'll get a few ideas here on what to do as well. As you can see in the agenda, we're going to talk about investing in relationships, and we're going to be setting 90-day goals. There's 2 parts to this, really. The investing in relationships ideas are good for anything and for anything that you do. And whether you determine to stay with the company you're with or move on, investing in relationships are so important. If you choose to stay within your organization, you have to navigate those waters. Learn how to set the kind of goals that'll set up win-win situations. So that's what we're going to be talking about as we move forward. First, what I'd like to do, though, is start with a story. And this story happened to a young lady about 5 or 6 years ago. She got her MBA with a focus on accounting. And she was fortunate enough to get hired by a country club down in Southwest Florida as an assistant controller. And the general manager of the club also thought she had skills for HR and helping develop people and those kinds of things. But he started out slowly. And they set goals not only on her accounting responsibilities, but also taking over very, very slowly some of the HR responsibilities that were going on. Over time, she was developing some programs for that club that really, really started to show results with regards to retention, training, happiness at work, those kinds of things. Unfortunately, that general manager had to leave. And they brought in a new general manager who had a Disney background. So with Disney, you know that they put a lot of time, effort, money into the people that they work with. And the program only accelerated. It got better and better. Their employee happiness ratio was extremely high. Turnover was at its lowest. It was absolutely fantastic. So then one day something happened. And that something that happened was the board of directors, and if you've been affiliated with any kind of nonprofit like that, board of directors have a big say on what goes on a day-to-day basis with regards to management. And this board of directors made a determination that all this stuff was fluff. And really all a person needed to do is just come to work, do their job, get paid, and go home. They did not believe in recognition systems. They did not believe in training and development. And the general manager there thought, you know what, if this is the way it's going to be, he left. He absolutely left, found someplace else to go to work with that appreciated his skills. But what about that person who was became the assistant controller and in charge of day-to-day HR and training and development? She was left with everything. And the moment they hired a new general manager, which was, by the way, about 6 to 8 months ago, her life has been a living hell, an absolute hell. Bullying, picking on her, looking for ways to cut not only salaries, but hours and a variety of other things. And all of a sudden they started to see a change, which you would expect. And she was blamed for it. She tried to set up a proper atmosphere and environment for her to work in and for the other people to work in, and they didn't want to hear about it. And she gave her, without another job in mind, she resigned a couple weeks ago and is now at home without a job. She's got a couple offers, she'll be fine. But the whole idea is that the culture that we talk about within organizations is absolutely huge. Culture is where we live. And there's the slide on culture will show you that what a bad and toxic culture looks like. When things aren't going right, there's all kinds of negative energies. There's drama. I'm sure you're familiar, maybe in your companies, you have this person who has the giant 8-foot spoon that they love to put in the 12-foot pot and just start stirring it. Sometimes they do it out of fun, but even if it is fun, to somebody else, it may cause some negative energies to occur. So a toxic culture actually supports that drama, and nothing gets done by it. It also creates an environment where harassment and discrimination occur. And that's been a big subject over the past couple of years in this country. It's always been a big subject, but for the past couple of years, with what's going on in America, we hear more about harassment and discrimination than ever before. And companies have to be careful. And I can tell you stories, and I'm sure you've read stories about harassment and discrimination that makes you ache, but you also wonder, where in the world is this coming from? And a lot of it is from the drama. When you have unhappy employees, they turn off customers. Because usually what happens, and it's not done intentionally, but if you're not feeling good about a particular situation, guess what? It's going to show to your customers or your members or whoever it is you're working with and other folks that are working within your organization. So these kinds of things do become toxic. People will then quit. Turnover is expensive. I'm sure if you've taken any program that talks about turnover, they talk about how expensive turnover is. And that's anywhere from 1 time to 5 times. And I've heard even 10 times the amount of that person's yearly salary. Activities that cause you to get sued. I had a situation several years ago with an organization that I was working with, mostly in training and development, but because I have an HR background, they wanted me to help them with a few things there as well. So I started doing some things, and as I was talking to the owner of the company, I was sharing with him some of the things that can get him in trouble. And he said, Gary, I don't want to hear about that stuff. And I said to him, let's call him John. I said, John, you hired me to do some of this stuff so that you don't get your blank in jail. And he said, I don't care, send my blank in jail. Just tell me when I might be in trouble, and then maybe I'll do something about it. Well, there's some people you can change, some people you can't change. But you will get sued if you're doing the wrong things, and particularly if you're not consistent with what it is you do. And of course, all these things get out with social media and other things. We wind up with bad press, not good for the company. Sick days. This is very, very interesting. I do a survey called Happiness at Work. And one of the things that the Happiness at Work survey does is it helps determine the amount of sick leave that an organization is getting and what the cost of that sick leave is. And people who are unhappy at work will take their sick leave 6 times more than a person who's happy. That's expensive. Employees steal business opportunities. That actually happened to me in a business that I had about 30, 35 years ago. I thought the culture was good, but apparently with a couple of my employees, it wasn't. And what they had done was they signed up with one of my competitors, they were going to leave me, go on with one of my competitors, and they stole my files. It wasn't a very pleasant thing. Everything in the end turned out okay. But during that period of time, so I had to figure out, what did I do? And I had to fix it. And of course, employees steal your job or promotion. And that's that big drama spoon again. There are people who are unhappy and they're looking to get after you. And so what do you have to do? You have to get yourself into a situation where you can be successful and again, invest in those relationships. So what does a good culture look like? A good culture creates positive energies. And a lot of this deals with the kind of values and behaviors your company has. And we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. It empowers employees. Now, empowerment is a scary word. I was with my nephew a couple of days ago. He works for the state of Florida in the criminal justice department. And he's a high-level manager who hates to empower. So we've all heard the story. Well, you know, empowerment, I can do it better. I can do it faster. I don't have the time to train people. In a good culture, you're not just training people, you're coaching them to help you do the things you're doing so you have more time to do the other things that are important. So a good culture reinforces that, which creates customer loyalty, because all those good things that are happening obviously will impact your customers and they'll want to do business with you more and more. It works towards advancement of their associates. It creates the better team, which creates team building and teams working together. Obviously, through creative thinking and good team building, we're going to get more business opportunities. We want to work safely, and safety in the workplace is another big thing today. And there's another study that showed that people who feel that they're safe at work actually are more productive. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? And then creates efficiencies and profitability and much, much more. And when we talk about culture, a lot of companies like to define their culture with values. I have a different take on it. The take I have on that is it's not just the words integrity or communication that's important, but it's about the behaviors that are important. What behaviors does that organization have in place to create that good culture? Are they a company? Are they a company that embraces honor commitments or making quality personal or a variety of other things, blameless problem solving, assuming positive intent? When you're an organization like that, then you're going to have a happy work culture, a happy place to work, and a more productive workforce. That results in this, the impact of happiness in culture. This is an interesting slide. 63% of people looking for new jobs, and this comes from hiring organizations throughout the country. 63% of the people looking for new work are looking for companies where the culture fits with their values, with their way of looking at things, with their dreams. 6% are looking for more money. Only 6%. And 5% are looking for advancement in their advancement opportunities. So this is a huge thing. And I talk to a lot of young people all the time. And what they're looking at is Where do I fit? Where can this company help me achieve what I'm looking to achieve? And these folks, and this is true with from about 40-year-olds or younger, they're looking for a community. They're looking for organizations that invest in the community, invest in their organizational community, and they're really looking to reinforce things. If you're an organization like that, stick with it, because their culture will help you navigate through the challenges you may be seeing. So, what is it that you need to do? I'm going to have to turn on a light in here because it's getting dark where I'm at. Hopefully this doesn't hurt anything. There have been several books written on developing your personal mission statement or your personal brand. And it's really, really important. I was with a young lady this morning at another country club. She's 24 years old. She's absolutely brilliant. She's got a wonderful personality, but she's struggling with her future because she doesn't know what her future is. And we're working on that. We're working on helping her drill down to what's really, really important to her. And we're coming up with some amazing things that she didn't even think about. There's some great, great books on this. One of them that I'm finishing right now is called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. It helps you focus on what are those things that are really, really important to you. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. And starting with why asks you those same different questions. And then, of course, there's books on values and behaviors, focusing on behaviors. So once you start creating those kinds of things and have an understanding of what you want in your life, you have to ask yourself, am I in the right place? If you are in the right place, we'll talk about what you can do. If you're not in the right place, and I hate to say this, but do what this woman did and this general manager did. Leave, find the right place, interview the right kind of employers. If you feel that you're in the right place, then again, like I said, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So how do you become a great leader? Actually, how do you win friends and influence people? There was a book written by Dale Carnegie in 1936 that still is relevant today as it was back then. Actually, the book was written from the classes he had started in 1912. So it's over 100 years since this philosophy has been around. What's interesting, the philosophy still is applicable today. That's why it's the third best-selling book of all time, with the Bible and then the Boy Scout Manual being 1 and 2, although I think the Boy Scout Manual may have dropped a little bit recently. But Dale Carnegie said, and Dale Carnegie had what he called 30 human relations principles. And these are 9 of them on how to win friends and influence people. First thing to do is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. And I'd add another one too, and blame. For some reason, we all have a tendency to want to do these things without looking at ourselves and the responsibility we need to take for ourselves. If you are doing that, no matter what you try to do in any organization, you're just not going to win. So instead of doing that, why don't you admit your own mistakes before criticizing others and get yourself a mentor or a coach or somebody else that you trust to work with you on what those things are. Get better. If you see somebody doing something well, give honest, sincere appreciation. State specifically what you saw them do and congratulate them on that, and encourage them to continue to do that continue to do those kinds of behaviors. Be motivational so others can succeed. You are a cheerleader. No matter where you are in the organization, you can be a leader. Become genuinely interested in other people. Be curious about them. Ask them questions. There's a variety of different things. And living in Southwest Florida like I do, I get a chance to meet people from all over the place. And it's amazing, no matter where they come from, how much you can learn about them and you find out that you have a lot in common. I don't know why number 6 is smile. It should be number 1, because it is contagious. It always has been contagious. I walk, I run, I do a variety of things. I do people all the time when I'm doing those things. And all I have to do is look up, give them a smile. And it's amazing how quickly people you don't even know smile back at you. Be a good listener and listen empathetically. Listen generously. Be an active listener. You've heard all those kinds of things. Really tune in. And the reason we don't tune in well or listen empathetically is because we're probably thinking more about what we want to say or what our interests are rather than the other person. That's why becoming genuinely interested in other people is so important. Talk in terms of the other person's interests and make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. No matter where you go, whether you're going to a new company or you're staying where you're at, these are behaviors that if you put them into practice, they'll help you navigate through any waters you go through. Then, in addition to that, and there's some people who are listening to this who said, you know what, I love this slide. Because what they've seen about other people is probably what this person has in common with them. High energy. You have to have high energy. And that high energy can manifest itself in a variety of different ways. In the book Essentialism that I mentioned earlier, Greg McGowan talks about finding those 2 or 3 things that are you're so passionate about and focusing on them with everything that you've got. If you've ever read the book about the Wright brothers or Charles Lindbergh, they focused on very, very few things and learned how to do them well. Be tough-minded. Now, for those of you who are in sales, you know how important this is, because most of the times you get rejected. And so you got to come back from that, and you got to be tough about it. You've got to learn from it. You just got to keep on plowing through. Courageous. That means doing things that you normally wouldn't do. Break through that comfort zone. And it's amazing that when you do, how good it feels and how much confidence you start to build. Be committed, be a dedicated hard worker, urge to create and help others to create as well too. Finding something different in what it is you're doing. I'm sure some of you, I know I do, but I know some of you that when you're on your way to work or on your way back from work or going somewhere else, maybe the question has popped up at your mind, I wonder why these people do this in this particular way. Why can't they do it this way? The challenge is we keep those thoughts to ourselves. How about sharing it with somebody? How about being in an environment that encourages you to share some of your ideas? That's where you want to be. Be goal-oriented. Goes back to that previous slide. What do you want out of your life? Inspire enthusiasm in others with desire to help others grow. This is so huge, particularly the second part, with desire to help others grow. When you start helping others grow, Zig Ziglar said this, when you help other people grow, they'll find a way to help you grow as well. It's a sharing type of thing. And strive to benefit others. That's what Rotary is about. You're already doing that. But you can do it within your workplace, you can do it at home, with your friends, etc. And no mistakes will happen and what to do about it. And that circles back up to being courageous and tough-minded. Learn from your mistakes. I know it's a cliche now, mistakes are an opportunity. They're more than an opportunity, I think. I think it's a thing to celebrate. Lee Iacocca once said, I don't care if people make a mistake. They can make $1 million mistake, as long as they don't make a second $1 million mistake. And we used to celebrate at my company. I had a retail and wholesale distribution company down here. And when we made mistakes, we celebrated. We'd get together, particularly if it was a big one, we'd get together, we'd pull out the wine, pull out the beer, get a pizza, and we would talk about it. And it was a wonderful time because we were so innovative and so creative. We were doing things that nobody else in our industry in Southwest Florida, actually throughout the country, were doing. Because we looked at those mistakes, we celebrated them, and we learned from them. So, in the end, here's what it comes down to. We've all heard the golden rule. And when you're investing in relationships, yes, you want to treat others how you want to be treated. Absolutely. Why wouldn't we want to be? But the challenge with the golden rule, it's about you. And when you're dealing with others, you want it to be about them. So we have something called the home rule. Treat others how they need to be treated. I shared with you a little bit earlier, be genuinely interested in other people. If you are, and you learn a little bit about them, as you know in Rotary, you give. When you learn about somebody, you can coach them, you can work with them. And by the way, it's a bilateral relationship because they can help you as well too. You're building the trust necessary in order to make that happen. So learn about them and then help them and coach them, make them better. So that we're talking about now about creating win-win situations. So what I'd like you to do, if you have a couple seconds, and if we have a couple seconds, write down in your chat box, when does stress occur in your business or in your life? Tell us what happens. And I'll give you about a minute or so to write that down. I don't know who's going to share that with me, but when we get to that 30 seconds or a minute, let's talk about some of the things that you wrote down. Thank you, Terry. Why I'm having so much time, the time is flying. I didn't realize. Okay, I see one here from Michael Greeley about job interviews. Job interviews can be really, really stressful. Whether you're doing the interview, if it's your interview, or whether it's you're interviewing somebody else. The challenge then again is when you study that company, if you're looking to interview, really, really study that company and come prepared to ask them values-based questions or behavior-based questions, because you have the right and the opportunity to interview them as they to interview you. So think about who they are, what they are, and ask them to give examples that may concur or be in alignment with what it is you're looking for. I see there's a few others. One was meetings with no purpose. Tech people who don't want to learn but want to stop progress. Wow. Well, there's Patrick Lencioni wrote a book on meetings, and he calculated the cost of meetings. And if you take all the people in the room, and I'm sure you've seen this before, and multiply their hourly wage, multiplied by the number of people in there, you can see how expensive meetings are. In a lot of the meetings I've gone to before I started working with these companies, a lot of them don't have agendas. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that they do have agendas that they're working on, and the agendas will fit in within a specific timeline. If they don't, go talk to the people individually. But it must have an agenda, and there has to be a purpose to that agenda. Let's get one more before we move on. Too much work and not enough time. Isn't that the truth? So I would suggest, Linda, pick up the book on essentialism, because that's what it is. Or Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, when he talks about your end in mind and about some of the time management things. What's important? When's it important? What are you supposed to be? What should you be doing when? Eliminate that stuff. And I know it's easier to say than to do, but eliminate that stuff that distracts you from what your brand is or what it is you're trying to achieve. So we've got to move on a little bit because we're running out of time. I didn't believe, like I said, I'm having a ball here. I hope you are too. So part of what you're going to want to be able to do is develop, when you're developing a team and you're developing delegation and empowerment, that helps you achieve all the things you need to do. And of course, that takes trust. So we're not going to have you do that, but think about this for yourself. Write down the challenges the person or department experiences during the day. Really look at them and ask yourselves, do other people understand what we're going through? And the chances are they don't. So if you look at, if I was doing a workshop for another group the other day. Actually, it was another country club. And if you know anything about the hospitality industry, particularly the restaurant part of the industry, is that they have a back of the house and the front of the house. The back of the house and the front of the house during key times of the day, have conflict. And the conflict occurs from the moment that waitstaff person takes the order or punches in the order and it gets to the back of the house, the stress begins there. Did they get the right order? Did they produce the right order? Is it warm? Is it to the expectation of the customer, et cetera, et cetera? When it really gets busy or communication isn't done in the right way, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of yelling. You should go into a kitchen one day where all this is happening. It's absolutely amazing. It's World War III. So you need to make sure that the teams are trusting each other. So we did a workshop. And part of that workshop was having them sit down in their teams and asking each the team what they think the challenges of the other team were. And it was amazing how on point they were, but how much they missed as well. And without going into a lot of detail because of time, when they started talking about it they had a lot of ahas and a lot of, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, we're causing you to do that. It was an eye-opening experience for both of them. So they not only put in processes to overcome that, but they did something else as well. They started communicating better with each other. They started trusting each other, that they were competent people, that they could understand what it is they needed to get done. So this is how you can start developing team and trust within the team. So let's see where we are here. I'm going to skip to personality, because this is really what's going to be important here. Everybody you talk to, every team you work with has a different personality. And so we may have every process in place that we need. That's great. But it takes people, as Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, said, processes run the business, but people run the processes. Really, really important. So understanding the people that you're working with is highly, highly important. So understanding your personality and their personality is extremely important. So I use a DISC program. Some of you may have taken Myers-Briggs and the Hauptman and a variety of other ones. But just using DISC, there are four dominant styles. And D stands for dominant. Now, a dominant personality, if you understand a person has a dominant personality, they're results-oriented, they're bottom line, they're direct, and they're decisive. Now, forget about the birds that you're going to see in these coming up. Those are just associations that help people remember a little bit about their personality style. And perhaps someday in the future, we can go through this in a little bit more depth. The second personality style is interactive or influential, as some people like to do it. You see these in a lot of your salespeople. They're optimistic, they're enthusiastic, they're motivational, and they're social. The next one is supportive. And supportive people they're really the team builders. They're great listeners, they're harmonious. They really, really try to help people. They're the HR people generally that you see within the organization. They make everything else happen. Without them, nothing happens. And then lastly, you have your conscientiousness, or your conscientious person who's detail-oriented, logical, data-driven, systematic, all these things that you see up here. The importance of this is this. If you can recognize if the person's fast-paced or verbal, or even-paced and reserved, it'll help you then identify the style they are. And they may be task-oriented or people-oriented. If you could see that, then you'll be able to identify very quickly what their style might be. And it's your job, not theirs. It's your job to be able to adapt to their personality so that when you're trying to be interactive with somebody, you're doing it with them in mind, not you in mind. We're talking about creating those relationships. When you start adapting to their style, you're starting to create those kinds of relationships. On the other side of things, once you've got this going on with your manager or whoever, then what you want to do is you want to be able to set 90-day goals. Not yearly goals, not semi-annual goals, 90 goals. Now, this works both at where you're at, when you're trying to navigate those waters, where things are challenging. Sit down with your manager, your supervisor, or whoever, and set the 90-day plan. What is it that they expect you to accomplish? And what can you do? And what kind of resources are you going to need, whether it be money, people, or whatever, knowledge, education? What are you going to need in order to get that success? You want to be able to negotiate the success. You don't want to be sabotaged. You don't want to be sandbagged in any kind of situations. Talk with that person and ask them what those expectations are and put together your plan. How often should you meet? What are the coaching opportunities? How are they going to help you negotiate all this? Then what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to develop something called OKRs. Now, OKRs have been around a long, long time. A man by the name John Doerr wrote a book called Measure What Matters. And he's a venture capitalist, and he won't get involved with any organization that doesn't have OKRs. And OKRs are very simply this. This slide and next slide will tell you what they are. They're objectives. The O is for objectives. What is it that you specifically want to achieve? Now, again, this works with the company that you're at, or if you're going to another company, you want to start out with early successes. So this formula works there too, both these slides. What are the objectives? What is it that you want to achieve? And you should only have one or two objectives at the most. You can't do anything, because what we try to do is we try to have these objectives done in 90 days. So you can't do more than one or two things well. So what are the objectives? What is it you're trying to do? And then create what the KRs are, key results or activities. And the activities, you only want to have a few activities, 1, 2, or 3 activities, at the most. And you want to be smart with those activities. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the SMART method. Once you've developed what that is, get the coaching that we talked about a little bit while ago. Set up a situation where you're feeling good about what you want to achieve. Your attitude's got to be right. You want to get the knowledge, but most importantly, you want to be coached. You want to be coached to success. And again, going back to all those other part of the relationships, you could be doing that with other people as well. So this works whether you're within an organization that's not your liking right now, but you want to stick it out, or going to a new organization. And with that, we'll take some questions.
Thanks, Gary. So one of the questions that we have for you is, what do you feel is the best thing that people could do to get along in the workplace for an overall bunch of different personalities?
Well, again, it goes back to investing in relationship and being generally interested in other people. If the focus is so much on yourself, you'll never be able to invest in those relationships. So you have to really, like I said, I hate to be redundant, but you generally have to be interested in other people. Nothing happens with you can't do it all by yourself. Even if you start off as an individual entrepreneur trying to run your business, like I did, at one point you're going to have to start hiring people. And when you start hiring people, you need to start investing in them, their needs, their wants, and helping to create win-win situations. From a personality perspective, adapt to their personality. It's your job to adapt to their personality. Another question?
Yes. At one point, does one figure out that they really do need a coach? What are those red flags?
There shouldn't be any red flags. I think everybody in every situation where you're working should automatically have a coach. In good organizations, they already have a mentor in place or a coach in place for that new hire. And I would recommend that for any company. If you don't have a coaching environment now, develop one. And start working with those people.
Next question is, what do you think could best help people as far as some kind of team event where they could learn to work with each other more? I think the question's basically looking for, is there an activity that you would suggest that people could do that would help them learn to work with each other better?
I'm sure we've heard about rope courses and a variety of other interactive team activities. And they're good at the moment, and they're entertaining, and people laugh, and they're having a good time and all that kind of stuff. The challenge is what do they do with it when they go back to work? Matter of fact, that's true with any training program you take. One of the biggest frustrations I've had as a trainer is that you put them through a program, whether it be a half a day or 12 weeks, like the Dale Carnegie course is, and they're learning things intellectually and to a certain extent emotionally. But when all that's done, people for some reason go back to their old habits. So regardless, it doesn't really matter what the team training event is. What is the takeaway? How are we going to get coaches that are working within that team to follow up with them? Constantly working with the different teams on holding them accountable for what it is they said they're going to do. So I gave you the example of the country club or the back of the house and the front of the house. The conflict that they were having. So they created an accountability system between each other to hold each other accountable for what it is they said they were going to do as teams. So that's one way you can do it. Create the accountability system, make it happen.
Next question. What do you think is the worst mistake that managers make with teams?
Well, I saw somebody, when the chats were coming up, somebody had written, they can't stand being micromanaged. whether it be a team or an individual, if you don't, and I'm using this word a lot, but I think it's so relevant, if you don't trust your team or you don't trust the individuals within the team, then you're going to have some challenges. So it's creating the environment, the knowledge and learning environment that people can grow. And as they grow and gain more confidence, you'll gain more confidence in them. And then your ability or your want to empower them will continue to grow. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle. The attitudes have to be right. The knowledge has to be provided. Coaching needs to be there. And then all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of people and teams developing the skills necessary to be successful. And it's a cycle because it continues. Once you've grown a little bit, you want to grow more. You want to grow more. And so you'll look for more knowledge. You'll look for more coaching. And it continues. I don't know a successful person. I don't know one successful person who's not been successful because they haven't been coached. They're coached. They've got a mentor.
Thank you. Next question is, what's your biggest success with a challenging personality?
My biggest success with a challenging personality? Well, trying to figure out my own. All the personality styles are challenging. The biggest challenge in all that is and some of you may have taken a DISC program or Myers-Briggs program in the past. You get this 15-page, 16-page, 18-page booklet with a whole bunch of great information in it. But what in the world do you do with it? And with DISC, you have 4 basic personality styles. All 4 of them are challenging. When you get to the S, that S, if they're being challenged, they're going to hibernate in a corner. How do you get that person out of the corner? The D person, if they're using the negative side of that personality, they're shouting and screaming at people, micromanaging the whole thing. You're not going to get much out of them. The I's have a tendency to go, like me, go on and on and on and on and on, and nobody else can get a word in edgewise. So they're all challenging. It's your ability to be able to adapt to the personality, sitting together and coming up with a plan, and then holding each other accountable for making that happen. We're using the personality styles as a tool to accelerate it even more.
So the next question is, obviously you've worked with a lot of different companies. So can you share what the most challenging situation you've ever had in working with a company?
Yes. This was a physician's office. They were referred to me by somebody who'd been using my programs, and I don't. Matter of fact, you talked about polio as part of Rotary. He sat with me on the board of directors of the March of Dimes, which its original charity was polio. Anyway, I'm an I. I have a tendency to digress, so forgive me for that. Anyway. I started working with them, and I really, really thought that this company was truly, truly invested in what it is we were trying to do. We had done a variety of different programs. They seemed to be successful. Attitudes and morale in the organization seemed to be positive in going forward. The challenge was that what I didn't know was that behind the scenes, the wife of the owner was sabotaging everything that we were trying to do. And before you knew it, I was actually kicked out of there. I was fired from it. And the company didn't revert back to what it was. It reverted back to something even worse. And I'll never forget that because I was totally fooled. I didn't do, from the sales aspect of things, I didn't ask the right question. I didn't know that there was somebody else involved that I had not met or would not meet. So that was probably the biggest challenge I had.
So the last question I have for you is, obviously you've shared already 7 habits of highly successful people. And I think another book you mentioned was Essentialism. What are some other good reading or good materials that we can look into to continue some of your suggestions and work on this?
Anything by Brene Brown, which her books deal with vulnerability. vulnerability to enable us to trust other people. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. There's a book written by a woman by the name of Liz Wiseman. It's called Multipliers, which is absolutely huge. You want to be able to work in an environment where people are looking to help other people grow. That's a good one. Let me look at some of my bookcases over here. Another great book is called Principles by Ray Dalio. This is a book where, as he was writing it, he had some epiphanies of his own. He's a very structured person, very structured with regards to process, how people should think in terms of what they do within his business. And then along the way, he realized that people had different personalities and that all people's likes weren't his likes, and all their differences were not necessarily in line with what he was trying to do. So the book is written in two parts: process and then people. Michael Gerber's The E-Myth is a 100-page version of that book, and it was written first, talking about processes run the company, but people run the processes. And of course, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Zig Ziglar's written some things. Norman Vincent Peale. A variety of the older books are really, really great, still very, very foundational. And I'm constantly reading. Don't stop reading. Just don't stop reading. Keep on finding stuff. There's a ton of stuff out there that's really, really good.
And I do have one more question.
Sure.
And that is, how do we share, how do we see the DISC personality and take that test so that we can learn who we are?
There are tons of DISC programs out there. Some you can go on the internet, you can Google them, and you'll see a whole bunch of free ones. Now, like everything else, you get what you pay for. Some of those free DISC programs get a general idea of who you are and what you are, and that's fine. But the more formal ones, and there's several out there, the one I use is called Take Flight. Wiley, which is a training organization, they have one. There's several of them out there that are really, really good, and they come with programs. So there's classes, and there's coaching and a variety of the other things. So I would think if you're looking for any kind of program, any kind of training program, whether it be DISC or developing leadership or anything like that, get a program where there's follow-up, where there's coaching, where you can take all the skill sets I just spoke about to help make you better. If you're getting involved with a program that doesn't involve some form of coaching or follow-up, you're probably wasting your money. Thank you for having me. Like I said, I've been associated with Rotary for a long time. Currently I'm not a Rotarian, but all my friends and family are Rotarians, and I certainly appreciate all the great work you guys do.
Well, thank you so much, Gary, for an outstanding presentation. I hope everyone who's here has been able to add a few of those navigational tools to effectively manage any shark-infested waters that you might enter. So please note the contact information on the screen for the presenter. And I'd also like to thank the behind-the-scenes tech support who make the magic happen. Terry Weaver, District 7750, Kim Walden, District 6900, and of course, our fearless leader, past District Governor Marcy Ullom. I want to remind you that Rotary Works coaching, career coaching is available to any Rotarian or to any Rotaractor. If you want career coaching, Rotary Works will be glad to help you. Would you like more individualized mentoring? If you would like to have a one-on-one coach, if that would be helpful to your career transition, or if you wish to volunteer as a coach, visit rotary.works. And you can look for the links in the right-hand column. Now, we have an impact fund, which is designed to support Rotarians and Rotaractors with a small grant that could maybe ease concerns during unanticipated career transitions. So please ensure that your fellow Rotarians and Rotaractors are aware of this fund that will provide a small cushion for you during shifts in your professional life that could maybe impact your day-to-day life. That information can also be found at rotary.works. Just click on the Impact Fund in the navigation bar on the top right side. And finally, you're invited to get involved in our initiative. If you're interested, please feel free to reach out to any member of our Rotary Works team. The contact information is also found at the Rotary Works website, rotary.works. This concludes our series for 2021. If you missed any of our sessions this year, remember that they are all recorded and you can find them at, you guessed it, rotary.works. Our session on January 12th, 2022 is at 5:30 p.m. and we will focus on identifying and leveraging your leadership styles. Look for more information toward the end of December. So thank you for joining us. We trust that this hour was a good value for the time that you spent with us. Have a wonderful holiday season, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year 2022. Thank you so very much.